I'm 76 now, and if you'd asked me at 30 what my purpose was, I would have pulled out the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, the neatly typed list of milestones I was determined to hit. I believed purpose lived inside those careful blueprints. Turns out, I was wrong. My name is Robert Callahan, and for most of my life I thought time was something you could manage the way you manage a shop floor or a production line. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood outside Detroit, where the rhythm of life was set by the auto plants. My father punched the clock at Ford for 38 years. My mother kept the house running and raised 3 boys on what little was left after bills. They didn't talk about finding purpose. They talked about providing. So when I graduated high school in 1968, I carried that same practical outlook. Work hard, climb the ladder, build something solid. I went to community college for engineering tech, got hired at Chrysler right out of school. I married Linda in 1973. We met at a church picnic. And we bought a modest ranch house in Warren the same year our son Tommy was born. I started making plans. The first plan was straightforward. Save for a bigger place by the time Tommy started school. Then another. Get promoted to supervisor. Buy a cabin up north for weekends. Have a second kid before Linda turned 30. I kept a ledger book on the desk in the garage where I tracked everything. Overtime hours, bonus checks, mortgage principal paid down, college fund contributions. Every January I'd sit out there with a thermos of coffee and update the figures, adjusting for cost of living raises, for the new baby we hoped for the way the world kept shifting underfoot. Linda used to smile at it. "Bobby," she'd say, "you're trying to schedule the assembly line of life." I chuckled, but I didn't quit. The structure felt safe. It made the uncertainty of the layoffs in 79 and 82 easier to stomach. I told myself if I planned well enough, we'd come out ahead. Tommy was 10 when the first real derailment hit. Linda started having pains she couldn't explain. We blamed stress. The plant was cutting shifts. Money was tight. Then came the tests, the diagnosis, the word cancer. Chemo, radiation, the works. She fought hard for 2 years. I remember standing in the oncology waiting room holding Tommy's hand while a doctor laid out survival odds like they were production quotas. I kept thinking, this wasn't in the ledger. There was no column for this. After the funeral, I went back to the book. I crossed out second child. I crossed out cabin up north. I redrew the lines. Single father raises son, keeps job, pays bills, holds it together. I told myself the plan had just been revised. Purpose was still in there. I just had to be more disciplined. Tommy grew up quicker than I wanted. He was smart, quiet, the kind who watched more than he spoke. By 17, he wanted to study film in California. I sat him down at the kitchen table with the ledger open and showed him the math. Tuition, apartment rent, health coverage, job prospects in the arts. I told him he could minor in film, major in business. He looked at me the way sons look at fathers when they realize the old man is scared. He went anyway. We barely spoke for the first year. I filled the quiet with more structure. I took extra shifts, got certified in lean manufacturing, joined the union committee, coached Tommy's old Little League team even after he left. I told myself I was building stability for him
for the grandchildren I hoped would come, for the day I'd be too old to work the line. Every promotion felt like another weld holding the wall up against whatever had taken Linda. Then Tommy met Maria. They married in a small ceremony on a beach near Santa Monica. I flew out, stood in a rented suit, and watched my son beam in a way I couldn't recall ever beaming myself. He was 27. I was 54. For the first time in decades, I didn't have the next target written down. The grandkids started arriving. First a girl, then a boy, then another girl 2 years later. I visited as often as the plant allowed. I pushed strollers on the boardwalk, read picture books, taught the oldest how to change a tire. I watched Tommy and Maria move through their days with a flexibility I'd never permitted myself. They argued, they laughed, they rerouted plans when a script fell through or a school play needed a dad volunteer. They didn't keep a ledger. They had each other. I started noticing how hollow the house felt when I came back from those trips. Not just empty, something heavier. I'd sit in the garage where the ledger still sat on the shelf and stare at the faded photo of Linda taped to the wall. I think about all the nights I stayed late at the plant while she waited up with Tommy. All the weekends I spent overtime instead of taking him fishing. I'd always told him, after this shift. I believed the shifts would wait. They don't. A few years back, I retired. The house was paid off, but it was too big, too quiet. I sold it and moved into a small condo closer to Tommy's family in California. Not on top of them, close enough to help with the kids, far enough to let them breathe. I stopped updating the ledger. I still have a calendar, but now it's mostly doctor visits and pickup times for soccer practice.
These days, I walk the beach with the grandkids. The oldest, Mia, is 12. She likes the big questions. Last week, we were sitting on the sand watching the waves, and she asked, "Papa, what did you want to be when you grew up?" I thought about it. I told her I wanted to be reliable. I wanted to know the next move before it came. She tilted her head and said, "But that's not really being something." She was right. I spent most of my years trying to bolt purpose to a timetable, as if meaning could be scheduled between shifts and savings goals. I thought if I organized tightly enough, loved responsibly enough, nothing that mattered would get away. But the things that count most, the sound of kids laughing in the kitchen, a quiet evening holding hands, the way a grandchild looks up when you actually stop to listen, those don't wait for you to clock out. They happen in the unplanned spaces. They happen when you set the ledger aside and show up. I'm not saying plans don't matter. Mortgages have to be met. Kids have to eat. But I used to think purpose was the finish line at the end of the checklist. Now I think purpose is the way you meet the moment you're in. It's choosing to leave work early to see a school play. It's picking up the phone to tell your son, "I was wrong about a lot," without needing to defend the years it took to see it. If you're still young enough to be making those long lists, and most folks are, don't wait until the garage is empty to learn this. Let the plans support you, not own you. Build in room for detours. Build in room for people.
Time doesn't give a damn about how clean your ledger looks. It only asks what you did with the hours it handed you. I still miss Linda every morning. I still wish I'd turned off the shop light more often and sat with her on the porch instead of running numbers. But I'm learning, bit by bit, to stop grieving the life I mapped out and start living the one that showed up. It's simpler than I planned. It's also fuller. And that, I think, is plenty.